Unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
Da-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na. Doesn't that theme song just fucking rock your socks off? Do you know that that's been the theme song since I started the show back in January of 2019? Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the kick-ass, unstoppable, no excuses nation. It is I, Christopher Rausch, your host of the Raw and Unscripted podcast, and we are back here for another episode that can potentially shift your mindset about your past, your present, and your future. If you allow it, if you get out of victim status and you get into victor status and you decide that you've had enough of being complacent, of your excuses, of not keeping your promise to yourself, you are in the right place. And if you want to be entertained, that might be your place for it too, because you know what? God only knows what's going to fall out of my mouth in this particular episode. So thank you guys all for being here, whether you're live on the video cast, which we do every single Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're live in the flesh. You guys can check us out. We're on YouTube. You go to youtube.com/The Christopher Rausch, R-A-U-S-C-H. If that's too hard to remember, you can go to rawandunscripted.com. That'll take you there. We're on YouTube. We're on every podcast platform you can imagine possible. So check us out on the video cast. Take us along in your car, in your gym workout, on the audio podcast. And thank you guys so much for being here. I'm excited for this particular show because guess what? We have a guest. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest. I know. 2026, I think we had 2 or 3 guests, and it was just me going and giving you guys an earful of shit every single week that, from what I understand, has moved a lot of you forward in your life, which I'm so thankful for. I'm appreciative of the emails that I get, which you guys can send me an email, info@noexcusescoach.com, info@noexcusescoach.com. I apologize. I'm a little bit excited. I've had a great day, and I tend to talk fast when I'm excited, which is usually pretty much all the time. And if you missed last week, oh my God, I did a show on emotional regulations, not like government regulations, because we don't even want to talk about that. No, we talked about emotional regulations. We talked about fight or flight. We talked about the history and the origins. We talked about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. We talked about the amygdala and how it hijacks. We talked about old stories we tell ourselves. Oh yeah, I've never been good at that, and I suck at this, and I'll never find the right person. All that negative self-talk that we tend to self-sabotage ourselves with. We talked about intensity as protection, right? Fear of inadequacy, fear of irrelevance, fear of losing control, fear of not being respected. We talked about a lot of great stuff. We talked about default identity and becoming who it is we are. We talked about childhood conditioning, which is super important because if you guys are new to the show, let me just tell you something right off the beginning, that most of who we become happens between 0 and 5 years old, 0 and 7 years old, depending on what you look at. My son's 9 years old and I'm scared shitless. I'm like, have I done a good enough job? Is he going to be okay? And then I realize this simple fact. And here's the great nugget that you're going to get right away. Everything that has happened in your life and everything that is happening in your life is preparing you for what's next. Okay. You got to believe that. Life is writing itself right now. And if you have this focus that everything is happening for a reason, and that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which is actually tattooed right there on my arm. For those of you guys listening, I have a tattoo on my arm that says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And on the left one, I have one that says, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. I keep them right in front of me, ladies and gentlemen, because I too have struggles and challenges and deal with stuff in my life. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode because we talked about our conscious choice. We talked about how to regulate your nervous system. We talked about how to change your beliefs, all sorts of great stuff. So I encourage you to go back and check out that. That is episode number 358. And the other thing I want to mention tonight is I'm actively promoting my group coaching program. I don't talk about it a whole lot because most of my coaching is one-on-one and I enjoy that, but I do have a group coaching program and I created that for the affordability factor because a lot of people would say they want to work with me and then they said they couldn't afford it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to answer that excuse and I'm going to give you something that you guys can actually go and do. So if you're listening to this within the sound of my voice, you're watching this, send me that email, info@noexcusescoach.com. I don't do this very often, but if you're interested in having a coaching session with me, I will gift you one just for the fact that you're supporting the show. The only thing you got to pay me with is you got to go do 3 nice things for complete strangers, and you got to come back and tell me about it, because I call it coach. So I will gift you a coaching session. And if you're interested, you can coach with me on one-on-one. You can join the group coaching program, which is pretty phenomenal. It started off as an accountability program 2 years ago, and it has grown to the fact that we got people in there that come in and out as they please. There's no commitments. And if they need it, they come back in it for a couple of months and they handle a situation. So that's what we can do for you. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and you guys keep asking me about it, and I'm happy to report, the book, It's Just You and Me, Kid, the story of my fucking amazing life story from a homeless 7th grade dropout to a master's earning kick-ass unstoppable person before you, is coming out this fall. I made a commitment to the publisher that I would have it to him by the end of March, and it's fucking March 10th. And I still have to go through and finish approving all the edits from the 3rd editor. Yeah. For any of you guys who have not been up to speed with that, it's been a fucking nightmare writing my story. Jesus Christ. Going back and remembering all the things that occurred in my journey and remembering them in great detail to be able to share them with you was a lot more than I chose to consider. And so it has been no order of a Jesus Christ. We're in 2026. Yeah, it's been 5.5 years. But since I sat down and said, today is, I can't remember what day it was. I think it was December something or other. And I'm writing my life story. And I sat there and I wrote it on the very first page. And yeah, it has been a journey. We've gone through, this is the 3rd editor because the 2nd editor couldn't finish it because the story was too hard to read. It's no fluff. It is no fluff, but it is a story of hope. It's a story of endurance. It's a story of not being a victim. It's a story of taking imperfect action and failing my way to success and making more mistakes than I can ever imagine. And going through this journey with my mother, it will help you with aging parents. It'll help you with dying parents. It'll help you with healing your little self. It will do so much for you. I am so excited to finally get it out. I made that promise because I'm just over having it sitting there staring at me going, Chris, you need to let it go. You need to let it go. And that's what we got to do. We got to let things go. But tonight I'm excited. We got Robert Broker in the house. What's up, Robert? Thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate that. I'm excited tonight. We have our 2nd guest that has been referred to us by Jenny, I think it's Jenny Ortega. I don't have my email up right now, but she has been seeking me out to have guests on the show. We had who we had on Mike something or other. I apologize. But we had Mike on the show not too long ago from England. That was a fun conversation. And tonight we have Mr. Devin Scott. So please welcome Devin Scott to the Raw Unscripted Show. What's up, Devin? All the way from New York City. What's going on, brother?
Well, I'm here at 10 p.m. and trying to match your energy as I'm here, but I'm so grateful to do this.
Trust me, dude, I am like a big fucking cup of coffee. You're going to get off this conversation and you will not be able to sleep because you're going to be like, oh my God, I need to take some chamomile. I need to take some Xanax. I need to take some whatever it is that we take to mellow ourselves out. I use a variety of different substances in my life. But thank you and welcome to the show. Thank you for being here live with us. My first question is for you to introduce yourself, because I can never do that justice. Introduce yourself, tell the people about yourself. And then my first is, what do you want to get across to people tonight? Given what I just said in the intro and what I gave to you before we went on live, before we went on camera and everything, what do you want to get across to people? And who's Devin Scott?
Okay. I live in New York City. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm from upstate New York originally. So a rural boy from town around 900, lived in Philadelphia most of my adult life. And I'm a somatics practitioner. So that means I work on helping people. Somatics practitioner. So somatics is like body-oriented transformation. I'm cross-licensed in psychotherapy, massage therapy, and coaching. And then I have certs in personal training and yoga and energy healing, a bunch of different modalities. So hands-on or hands-off the body, depending on how I'm working. I'm trying to get people back into their body, connected into the way their body speaks to them so they can come into better alignment. But in the process, it's taking the biological version of a body that exists for its environment now and seeing if we can slowly make space for it to transform into its next shape.
Awesome. And what do you want people to walk away from this conversation knowing and feeling in their hearts tonight?
So I gave like a lot of thought to this over the last couple of weeks going up to this, and everyone I'm working with, everyone I'm touching, everyone I'm interacting with right now has some level of existential angst or despair or a fried nervous system. There's just something in the air right now causing some level of powerlessness or hopelessness, a recalculation of spirituality and purpose. And the one thing I keep working with my clients about or thinking to myself is that when you're in a low point or you're struggling to find meaning in life, that's not a failure or a dysfunction or a disorder. That's an opportunity to reevaluate. It's a signal from the universe or your life or from your body saying the way we're going right now is unsustainable. So pause, feel your way out of what's not working and then work your way into what will.
I love that. I love that. Yes, there's a lot of angst and there's a lot of helplessness. I get phone calls every single day. I get messages every single day. Chris, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Chris, I'm feeling helpless. What's your advice, like low hanging fruit, just to get people started and whet their appetite a little bit? What are a couple of things they can do when they're feeling that sense of overwhelm and they're feeling like I can't handle it. I can't take this anymore.
Sometimes we have to break down. So I hate to put that right front. It's like sometimes we just have to let it collapse because the collapse is where we break the foundation and build anew. But we're not always ready for the collapse. And so in trauma work, we think of resourcing versus processing. And resourcing is how do you give your body enough resources to cope with the environment and to look at something more honestly? And so if we don't feel equipped to look at it today, it's bringing in resources to make us feel safer to let it later. And that can be social connection, that can be exercise, that can be breath, that can be space, that can be distraction, that can be the Xanax at the end of the night. There's so many ways to do it, but the big thing is how can I bring resources to my body to face the situation as opposed to bring things in to distract me from facing the situation?
I love that, Devin. I love that. So oftentimes I talk about the fact that we're ignoring reality. We run to our short-term gratifications and then 2 years pass by, 5 years pass by, and then we kind of come up for air and we go, oh shit, everything's the same. I'm going to go back into my phone. I'm going to go back into my gambling. I'm going to go back into my Netflix. I'm going to go back into my shopping or whatever it is that gets us through. And I've been in those places. Have had my dance with alcohol. I've had my dance with drugs. I've had my dance with women. I've had dance with all sorts of things, but you're right. Sometimes things have to break down. And I think that I tell people allow that collapse, allow that feeling to come over you because there's nowhere else to go but up. And I love the fact that you talk about getting reconnected with our body, because when people come to me and they can't afford to work with me, I sit there and I said, you know what? I tell you what, I will give you 5 book titles to read. You read those 5 books and then you start doing the 5 things with your body. There is no way in hell you're not going to be 50 to 90% better in 6 months. Are you willing to do that? And sometimes people are like, well, I'm not really a good reader. And yeah, I don't like water. And I'm like, okay, then you just stay right there in your victim status. It's obviously working for you. You probably got people that are, oh, poor you. Yeah, and you're in that victim status works for you. But there's going to be coming a day where you're either going to get your shit together or you're going to be dying, looking back on your life going, fuck, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. And so I tell people the 5 things that they could do with their body is hydration, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and vitamin D. All within the scope of achievability, right? I wear an Oura ring. I started doing that years and years ago when it first came out because people were like, Chris, you don't get enough sleep and your quality of sleep. And I was just like, that was a badge of honor. Yeah, I get 2 to 3 hours sleep, 4 hours sleep if I'm lucky, but I'm go. I'm showing everybody that I can do it. Until one day I woke up and I literally felt like I fell off a 20-story building and landed on the concrete and lived. My body hurt so bad. My brain hurt so bad. And I went to the doctors and I ran blood tests because I am good at that. And they came back. And after multiple doctors and multiple blood tests, they said, your adrenals are shot. And I said, great. What do I take to fix it? And they said, you need a rest. And that was my wake up call. I'm like, fuck rest. Jesus. No, people rest and they get left behind. Like I'm that guy. You can tell. But I took the advice and I sat there and said, okay. And I stopped working so hard and I stopped pushing myself so hard. And then my adrenals started to heal. And guess what? I went back hard in the paint and fucking crashed again. And so I learned, if I take care of those 5 areas of my life, I got a vitamin deficiency test and I found out my vitamin D was low, my magnesium low, my potassium was low. Something else was low that I can't remember about. So I started taking supplements and I started feeling better. And then I started doing better. And then I started realizing, well, Chris, if you take your own advice right now, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to continue to get what you've always got. So what are some achievable ways that you can recommend for people to reconnect with their body, reconnect with their true sense of self? Because so oftentimes we're living in the identity of what other people want us to be. So talk to us a little bit about that.
I mean, I'm not of the opinion there's like a one size fits all, but there are definitely things I come back to all the time. And probably the biggest thing I work with clients on when they first start is breath. Because breath is the core way of coming back into the body, slowing it down, changing it, regulating it, increasing the exhale, knowing what breath feels nourishing. That's the basis of our life. And so I spend a lot of time with clients at the beginning on breath. Another thing I try to get all of my clients to do is dance. It comes from every indigenous practice across the world. We have this long lineage of it. The research on it is that the best cure for depression is dance. It is just such a good way to come into your body's natural expression and desire for movement, and also your natural fascial rebound. If you're doing it like in your own rhythm, you start to feel what the rhythm of the body actually feels like, and that is the way the fascia most organically distributes weight across the body. And slow down. And it's the thing, like you said, like no rest, right? If someone is wanting to connect to their body, they cannot do it unless they slow down and have silence, unless they slow down and have moments to let their body speak to them without a distraction, without a conversation, without interruption, because we can't listen if we don't make that space.
So true. I love that you talked about breath. Probably 5 years ago, I would have went, breathing, what the fuck? I mean, I would hear about breath work and I'm like, I breathe just fine. I'm pretty good at breathing. I'm still alive. But then my buddy Scott, who I used to co-host a show with, came here to Southern California, and he says, we're going to go to a breathworks class. And I'm like, oh, how fucking fun. We're going to go learn how to breathe. Yeah, really? And you know what I'm talking about. So I went, it was right on the tail end of COVID. So I went in a room for like 10 people, and there was mats laying out. There was beautiful music playing. And they tell me, oh, we secured this breathwork guy that's in demand, and he's going to be on the speaker. And I'm like, what the hell did I get myself into? Are they going to sacrifice me? What's going on? And so I lay down, and then they're like, okay, start, doing this, different breathing. Let's just call it that. And then they said you might hyperventilate, your arms and your toes may curl up, and don't fight it. And yeah, don't fight it. And I'm like literally laying there going, what in the fuck did I get myself into? Like, what is this hippie shit? Right? This is crazy. And so I sat there and I said, Chris, I told my inside voice, I said, shut the fuck up and just do it. Just do it and relax and let go. And so I did. And sure enough, I felt like I was going to pass out. They're like, you're not going to pass out. You're going to be okay. And then I hear people screaming and crying. And all of a sudden this like peace came over me. I was like, holy shit. And so we got done and everybody was talking about it. And like, and my friend Scott says, so what'd you think? And I'm like, that was probably the oddest experience I've ever had sober in my life. And so ever since then, I took another breathworks class over the internet, and God's honest truth, every single day I do my box breathing. I do my 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, hold for 4 seconds. And I taught my son to do that at 5 years old. And I said, when you get frustrated, when you do that, it's pretty amazing how quick you can kind of bring yourself back to center and go, okay, is what I'm experiencing right now as traumatic as I'm making it out to be? Like you said, it's an opportunity for us to reset. And for everybody who's listening, I highly encourage you to check it out, do a breathworks class. And the other thing I'm gonna piggyback on what you said. I don't necessarily do the dance thing, but what I've recommended and what I found in my life is singing. Like when you sing, the vibration it's crazy. So I have a morning playlist on Spotify, and I've had that. I just listened to it the other day. I hadn't listened to it in a while. And I would listen to that on my way to my corporate job, which was extraordinarily stressful. I was a director of operations, had a corporate career for 30 years. And I would listen to those 6 songs. One of them was ABBA Dancing Queen. One of them was Hanson Mbop. It was all these happy songs. And I would sing them at the top of my lungs. And by the time I got to work, my vibration, my energy, my frequency, if you want to, go earthy, was incredible. And anytime I was frustrated, I'd go put my headphones on, go take a walk, listen to that music, get myself going, bop, 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 whatever, and things would change. But I want to bring people in on this because I found this very interesting, and I did a little bit of research on you. Your path is anything but traditional: math, economics, law, social work, and then healing work. What happened in your life that made you start questioning the path society told you to follow? Because I found that so interesting. It seemed like, people were telling you what to do and you were kind of following maybe what was expected of you, and you kind of stuck up middle fingers and put the fuck you and followed your own path. So let's talk about
that. So, I mean, sometimes I don't even know if it was so much a choice or I just kept getting pushed. I'm a mouthy non-conformist. So I was like you. I had my own career in corporate America. I was a director of product analytics before I switched into this work. And I just am not a very tolerant person of people who like the status quo or don't want to change. And it's the nature of my life myself. I'm always working to grow and change. And I tried my best to conform to society. I did the law thing. I did the corporate thing. I did the psychotherapy thing. But I always found myself just an odd duck out because I was always looking to change things, to improve things. And when you're that person in an environment that's built to sustain the status quo, people don't like it. People don't like you. And eventually I just was like, I want to work in my own way, in my own style, that's not trying to conform to someone else's way. So I had breaking points with everything I did. In psychotherapy, I just didn't like diagnosis. I don't fundamentally agree that diagnostics are real in mental health, at least most of them. I think they're largely anti-science. And I think they're largely there to tell people the ways that they're inconvenient to capitalism and ask them to conform better to the needs of their employer. I think that's largely what psychotherapists do. They're strong arms of capitalism. They're like weaponized hero complexes, trying to get people to behave better in society. And being someone who holds this opinion, it doesn't work well to stay in the system. I will say when I trained in massage therapy, energetics, these were my people. I largely still work with them because they're already a little out there, because massage already gets equated to sex work. They're already a little relegated at the corners. They're all weird. They're all willing to experiment. They're all willing to just have experiential knowledge and sit with people. Not sure that was the most responsive, but vaguely that is how I ended up deciding to carve my own path, was just not being someone who liked the paths that were already carved.
I love that. I love that. Which makes me think about, the thing we talk about here on the show is that people have to hit rock bottom. We talked about that before. So what was your rock bottom in life and how were you able to bounce back from that?
I feel like I've had a few. Gosh, when I started my healing work, it was my first trigger. I watched something on TV and it just triggered me. And I had spent 24 years telling myself I didn't have trauma, willing myself through it, pushing myself through it, using executive function to just be high functioning while I was struggling in all sorts of areas of my life. And then I just kind of lost control of my body. I just was crying all the time. I couldn't use willpower. All the things that were doing it before were starting to fail me. And I realized the things that worked for me before are not working for me. I cannot will myself into doing this. I cannot do this. I have to look at the things that are deteriorating me. But I'm also right in this moment in my own new form of a rock bottom, because I had a terrible 16 months that included a really traumatic work situation and then a really traumatic breakup. And I've just been kind of at a grind of trying to figure out how I did a lot of healing work and then got myself into really bad situations again, and wanting myself to not repeat that mistake, but also feeling pissed off and resentful and exhausted because I thought I'd gotten myself out of certain old patterns of being, and wanting to just sulk and be grumpy or be a victim. And to some extent, I have to sit there until it collapses me, until I think, well, nothing's going to change if I don't change myself. So maybe I'll hit rock bottom a few more times, but I'm not sure it's a one and done thing. It's a rock bottom gets us to meet a part of ourselves we've been evading for a long time, but that doesn't mean it's all of the murky parts of us that we are evading.
It's so true. I think about the term, and I talked about this last week about identity, the default identity. This is just who I am. This is who I've always been. Telling ourselves that over and over again, we have no other choice but to believe it. And so what I found in my journey, especially now, I just turned 57 of all things. Life is pretty fucking crazy. You know, just when you think you got it figured out, just when you think you like everything's smooth, God, source, universe has a way of sitting there saying, you know what, mother trucker, I'm going to give you this. You think you've learned the lesson, I'm going to give you the next thing. And it's this level, this ascension level that we have to choose to sit there. Again, why I have it tattooed on 2 different arms. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I had to put that in 2016 because I went through an existential crisis, which my coach told me. When she told me that, she goes, "You're going through an existential crisis." I'm like, what the fuck is that? That sounds like a psychiatric disorder, and I don't have that. I have other things, but I don't have that. And I made a choice at that point to step away from coaching. I decided that I just wanted to be a normal person. I'm not into sports, but I was like, I want to be the guy that stops on a Friday night and gets a 6-pack of beer and watches sports all weekend and goes back to work. You know, so I took 2 years from coaching. I took 2 years from motivational speaking. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to back off of who I think I should be, because ultimately there's a part of us that wants to prove ourselves. We want to prove ourselves to our parents. We want to prove ourselves to our peers. We want to prove ourselves to our friends. And that becomes unbearable at times, because then you ultimately go, who am I? So what do you say, Devin, to people who are out there who don't even know who they are anymore? They're dealing with this overwhelm. They're dealing with this frustration. And they're like, I don't even know what the fuck I like anymore. You know, I feel like everybody's opinion has been bestowed upon me, and I don't even know what to think anymore. How do we get people back to that grounded center, aside from the body reintegration speak that we talked about before? What are some ways that people can sit there and reconnect with themselves and identify who they really are?
Oh, well, first I'll just say, like, I'm in this too. As someone who does this work professionally, I'm a little lost in the sauce, a little in the ocean. There's no perfect way of doing this. And I don't think perfectionism necessarily helps the journey, because sometimes we're just meant to be confused, or that maybe what the universe is passing us is a moment to collapse our certainty, to collapse our belief in control. I'm drawn to like the Buddhist concept of non-self, which I like. This one definition is just like the idea that any version of us impermanent is extremely limiting. And I do tend to think this. Maybe there's a kernel of us that persists, but nothing says anything about us as permanent. And who we thought we were before could easily collapse into something else. And I've yet to meet anyone who didn't have some values persistency across their lifespan. Like maybe they are just a really justice-oriented person, and that might stick with them their entire life, but the form it takes is different. And there's always a process, because we're attached to the version of us that existed before, and then there's a fear side because we don't know what version of us is coming. And I think it just requires a lot of tenderness, and curiosity and play and
surrender.
So much surrender.
That's the big word I had to learn and accept, was I need to surrender. I can't fight. I can't control. I can't will. But once I surrender, and again, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, that everything that has happened in our life and everything that is currently happening is preparing us for what's next. Because when we look back on our life, I ask people all the time, when have you learned and grown the most? When things were easy or when things were fucked up? And people tend to say, you know, when I went through the divorce, when my mom died, when I got fired, when my business went bankrupt, that's when I learned about X, Y, and Z, da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, so can you have a level of excitement? Maybe that's too strong of a word. Can you have a level of curiosity about what's unfolding before you? And instead of trying to create what you think is going to make you happy, how about just allowing the opportunities in the moment to make you happy? Because I found, Devin, and you probably realize this too, I've met rock stars and actors and actresses. I've coached millionaires and billionaires. I've coached all sorts of different people. And I always look for the similarities in it. And so oftentimes people say, I thought the money, I thought the girls, I thought the cars, I thought the houses, I thought the vacations, I thought all of that stuff was going to make me happy. And it sure did for about 6 months. But then I realized it was still the same shit going on in between my ears. So a lot of times it goes back to what I said before, what happens in our childhood. So when you think about your life, what are maybe some experiences in your childhood that helped you form the beliefs that you have now that perhaps you can let go of and embrace the Devin Scott who is here today?
Oh.
You didn't know you were getting into some shit, huh?
I just got caught in the word help, and maybe I'm just in a sad boy era where I'm like a little resentful of my family at the moment. So I'm still working on it. I tend to work in like a dual consciousness perspective, which is it's fine if you sulk, it's fine if you self-pity, but also remember you have capacity for witness consciousness to see that you're on a journey and to have faith that it's going somewhere. Like, as long as you believe that there's a purpose here, it doesn't matter if you see it today. It can keep you going. And I think I have that. I think of that. So my childhood, I was kind of a forgotten child, and I had a extremely violent brother. And in a very literal sense, what I ended up internalizing was that everyone in the world wanted to murder me.
Murder?
Murder.
Wow.
Which was what I was being told from a very young age, was very explicit death threats, very explicit, everyone in the family wants you dead, everyone in the town wants you dead. We are going to give them a medal finally. And I had a lot of internalizations from this. When I tried to get help from my parents, they told me I deserved it, and I never could get out of it or feeling safe. And this had a plethora of impacts on me. The one I had been working on for the first like 30 years of my life was the version of it like, if I have value, someone might love me. If I'm giving, someone might love me. What I'm working on now is this very deep wound of, if I have value to someone, they won't want to harm me. Because my last year, the two really bad experiences were very sadistic. I had someone through my professional life come at me very sadistically. And then I had a partner who I found out got into like a secret dom sub relationship for 8 months during our relationship and degraded me into being like a kink or a sex prop used for humiliation for 8 months, all without my consent.
Wow. I'm so sorry. That's
so like I realized I got to this point of like, oh, I was giving my best to these people and actually I didn't escape harm. Some people are sadistic, some people are awful, and there's no way to avoid it. There's nothing I could do. I can't be a good enough boy to do this. All I can do is leave situations. And so this is what I'm working on now. But the question of like healing or moving on in body work or medicine, there's this distinction in healing between parenchymal healing and non-parenchymal healing. And parenchymal healing is when you heal with the tissue that was wounded. So if you have a small cut on your skin, it's parenchymal. You'll get skin tissue. You won't scar. And the only parts of our body that do that are skin and bone and parts of liver. But most of our body heals non-parenchymally, which means it gets scar tissue. And if we get a deep cut in our liver or our skin, we also get scar tissue. And so I'm not concerned about going back to purity or finding a way where these never were in my body, because I don't think trauma heals parenchymally. I think it heals with scar tissue. And we never go to a state of not having had that experience. We heal and change our body shape being permanently impacted by it. And instead of thinking to ourselves, how do I get this scar tissue out of me? It's, how does this scar tissue change the way I move through life? How does it change my weight distribution? What skills or talents come from this scar tissue that I didn't have before?
right.
And for me, I became wildly empathic because I needed to constantly predict the people in my household to avoid violence.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me very good at my job because I have a depth of deep pain that I can tap into to witness people. And so not only do I hear them, I can actually like remember what it feels like in my body. I can tap into it. I can join them. And that allows me so much professional skill set that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and that the world, I think, needs. But that is from the perspective of like, I don't heal it. I don't go back and I don't fix it. I just learn how it shaped me and how I can use it to move my life forward.
I love that. And I apologize. We might be having some technical difficulties with the stream right now because I can hear the wind out there. Here in California, we've had crazy winds for the last 2 weeks and they've been gusting up. And I noticed that my internet thing has been going crazy. I have an internet monitor right here And so I apologize if there's been any breakups or glitches in that for the people watching the video cast. I want to get to that. I want to recognize we got Jacqueline Rose in the house. She says, hello, Christopher, kick-ass Irish woman here. Thank you, Jacqueline, for being here. Jacqueline also says here, the truth of life is the truth is life the truth is life likes to make your life miserable at times, but it is how well you can take the hits. It's so true. Like I think about the Rocky speech, how many times can you take the hits? It's not, that you fall down, it's how fast you can get back up. And I just want to acknowledge you, Devin, and say thank you for your honesty, because that's one thing I really value in people. And you talked about values, you said the word values, I think 2 or 3 times now. And, for people who are listening and watching, that's one of the key things I prescribe to people is if you're not sure where you're at or where you're going, do a values exercise. And I'm happy to send a values exercise sheet to anybody listening. It's got a whole shitload of values on there. And I do this with my coaching clients, and it helps them provide clarity of where it is that they're going, not where they've been. Because we've heard the analogy, like you can't drive forward looking in the rearview mirror. But so oftentimes we're in that shoulda, coulda, woulda. We're in that victim phase, right? And you talked about pity party and stuff like that. I tell everybody, you get to have a pity party. You get to stomp your feet for one day. You get to be pissed off and fuck me and God damn it, why does this happen? And I do it. I did it a couple of weeks ago because I was like, why this and why is this going on? And then I sat there and I said, how can I look at this with a sense of gratitude? Because you get to look through life, and I try to keep things as simple as possible. You get to look through life through a lens of fear or a lens of love. So what zone am I operating in? Am I operating in a zone of fear? Am I operating in a zone of love? Am I loving myself? Do I like myself? And what happens when you do those values is I tell people to find the 5 values that really guide your life. And then you can ask yourself, in those moments of being a victim, in those moments of despair, in those moments of overwhelm, what are my top 5 values? And am I being congruent with them? Do I value trust? Do I value honesty? Do I value integrity? Am I speaking to myself the way I would speak to my best friend and the person that I love? 99% of the time, the response I get initially is no. And I'm like, what would it be like if you talk to yourself as lovingly as you do your mom or your best friend or your husband or your kid? What type of results would you achieve with that shift in how you speak to yourself? And it goes back to those values. I'll tell you that right here. I keep it right here. I tell people I'm a sticky note dude. I have 3 different stacks of sticky notes. You put your sticky notes there and you sit there and go, hey, am I being congruent or incongruent right now? Oh, I'm being hey, so what can I do in this moment? How can I do a reset in this moment to realize that, again, you said the word believe. I sell these wristbands. One side says believe, the other side says no excuses. And I wear them, and people ask me all the time, like, why is believe on there? And I said, it took me a long time to realize why believe was on there. Initially, it was a wristband that was given to me by a friend when my cat was dying of oral squamous cell carcinoma, had cancer growing on the side of his face. But ultimately, I thought, I've been successful in my life, and I'm actually going to go see my ex-mother-in-law tomorrow, who was one of the instrumental people when I was 17 years old and I was out of being homeless, and I dropped out of school in the 7th grade. I had lived on the streets for 4 years with my mom in a car. I had a gun put to my head. I was almost carved. I tried to kill myself twice. Unfortunately, I sucked at it. And this lady and her husband and my future wife at that point, we're now divorced and still friends. They believed in me. And that's why I have it tattooed on my arm that says you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. That's what Bill said to me. Her husband said, Chris, you're only limited by what you believe up here. And so when we decide, we make that commitment to ourselves, and we take the R word, that responsibility to make active choices to change where it is that we're going. That first thing that we need to do, number 1, is change how we talk to ourselves. Number 2, we have to look at the people we're surrounding ourselves with. What else would you recommend for people to do, whether it's based on your particular work or your experiences, to get people to have that momentum? Because that's why I teach people, like, once you start getting that momentum, once you start taking care of the 5 things, once you start reading the 5 books, it's pretty incredible what momentum you can create for yourself and how you can become that person that deserves the love and deserves the success. So what are your recommendations?
I'm going to take a moment.
Okay. No
It
problem.
depends how you
Just said it.
think about it. Like I have my health and wellness coaching license, and that is largely like, how do you life hack yourself into changing your behavior? And the reality is, once you're ready to make change, our brains are very easy to hack. You put yourself on trackers, you like get the momentum going, you bring in social supports. There are all sorts of like habit tracking things. We have so much good research on how to change your behavior. But the research always comes back to the basic thing at the beginning of, did you make the decision to change? Did you make the decision to start the momentum? And that's the trickier part. And that's usually where I spend a lot of time with clients, because I don't want to push change until change is aligned. It's very easy for them to come and be like, I don't feel good, I don't know this. I can just be like, go work out, go do this. But the risk is always, if you throw too many resources or too much change, you might miss the wisdom of the pain. And it's the kind of metaphor of the chrysalis of the butterfly. When someone enters suffering and they start to see that they need change, they enter that chrysalis, and if they leave too early, they don't become the butterfly. And if they leave too late, then they don't become the butterfly. You want to stay in the chrysalis for the right amount of time until you get the wisdom. And so I may be a little bit different than you in that I don't care that much if my clients start to change until I see that they have come to the embodied wisdom that they want to, that they need to, that their current life is intolerable and they want to do it. And what I care a lot about, catching that momentum, that moment where they see the way that they're living is not the way that they want to live, that their values are not aligned, that they have this incongruence and it's unsustainable for them and it is intolerable. Once that comes, it's very easy to throw all the behavioral tools at them and the momentum will come. But it's catching that original decision that I find more challenging.
I love that. I love that. And what we've also danced around the subject tonight is when I talked about fear. And what do you make of fear? Do you think fear is good? How do you cope with fear? And what recommendations do you have for people to set aside fear and get into a space of love and trust of themselves and trust of the journey?
I'm in a reevaluation period on fear, trust, and control myself, because I realized a lot of my growth still rested upon control orientation. I just changed my control orientation to be different than the old one. I don't think any feeling or drive is inherently bad. I think it's all here with a purpose. That's fine. And the challenge that I'm looking at right now with fear is that I used to think confronting fear meant resourcing yourself enough to feel safe. And I'm no longer convinced that's the long-term arc of growth or that I'm on.
Yes.
I think there are a lot of people on the path, like first step for someone with a really bad trauma is getting safety. But then once you get on the path of integrity, it's different, because integrity doesn't guarantee safety. Integrity guarantees nothing. In fact, it often becomes highly risky. And when you make the choice of integrity, you risk social rejection, you risk dramatic failure, you risk harm if you're outspoken. And these are actually real things. And it's not the decision that you want, that you do it in a way that becomes safe. It's a decision that you are so set on your integrity that you can face the consequences. And that's courage. Maybe it's not just trust. I think I'm just maybe in the rock bottom stage, where just like, it's a level, I don't give a fuck. Like, I refuse to live any other way. And if I live in integrity, I can swallow the consequences. But if I'm out of integrity, I can't swallow the consequences. It's too painful when I misaligned myself or I betrayed myself. And that's where I am in like processing the last 2 years. It's like, yeah, the shit sucks, but I don't really mind processing deeply, deeply fucked up things if I didn't betray myself in the process. If there is a natural disaster, if someone dies who I really love, like, I know the skills, I can do them. But what makes this last year sticky is I can look at the times I did not act with integrity and acted out of control or fear. When I thought, I'm not feeling good in this relationship, maybe it's my trauma. I can sit better. I can be more patient. I can tolerate this. And sat through 8 months of abuse because I convinced myself that that was the control orientation. And I betrayed myself. And that makes the pain intolerable to me now. And that's what I'm looking at. Fear is originally helpful. We need to understand what safety feels like. But then I think at a certain point, fear is just something you tolerate.
It's something that's a part of the journey. And you can, I talk about the acronym for fear being face everything and rise. Because, fear to a certain extent is protective, but so oftentimes fear keeps us limited. Fear keeps us in that certainty phase. As long as I know what's going to happen, then I'm safe. Like you kept using the word safe. I think safety is great, but at the same time, I look at the delineation between living and existing. Right? Again, I try to keep things super simple. Am I living or am I existing? And my question to you, based on this conversation that it just occurred to me, what are your thoughts on forgiveness? Because you've shared your childhood about family issues and current family issues and betrayals and backstabbings and all sorts of different things. I find that a lot of my clients, when we work on the process of forgiveness, some pretty miraculous events start to take place. So what are your thoughts on forgiveness and how does that play a role in your continued journey?
I think forgiveness is powerful if it's sincere. And it's harmful.
How do you know it's sincere?
So there's this meditation in a program that I teach on forgiveness. And it's generally 3 steps, which is like, one is humanization, which is depersonalization. It's trying to remember that nothing is actually like that personal, that we're all kind of just animals doing things. There's this compassion, but what I care more about it is like thinking that like we're a part of a larger structure and that it's not all about us. The second part is acknowledging the harm. And the third part is setting accountability. And I think the third is where people forget. And I think if we don't set accountability, forgiveness is largely a self-harming practice.
How so?
Because accountability is where we learn. And accountability says, if you are the one forgiving yourself, I will not do this to someone else again. I am learning, I'm growing, I'm committing to change. If you're forgiving someone else, accountability says, I'm recognizing that I am not okay with this behavior and I'm not tolerating it again. And I'm going to change myself to not allow you to victimize me again. And I'm not one who sits as much on like the victim-victor mindset. I'm okay being a victim the first time.
Right.
Like this construct does not bother me. It does not make me feel weak. Some people come in and just cut your knees out and you don't know what's happening. But the question of victim-victor to me is the second part. Like, you learned it once, did you learn your lesson? And that is the third step, accountability. And I do think forgiveness is incredibly healing as a practice if it has this accountability. But I don't think it is if it lacks it. And I don't think it is for anyone. If you pretend that you're forgiving someone, but you're not really acknowledging and acting and learning on your harm, you're invalidating yourself. And when it comes to that other person, you're stripping them of accountability. You are stripping them of the consequences of their actions. And that's not actually kind to them. That's not goodness in the world. People need to face the consequences of their actions. And if you are not doing that to them, if you are whitewashing their behavior, if you are enabling and conspiring in their behavior and telling them actually it's okay, then you are not doing good for either of you. And that's going to stick with you because you are watermarking, you're putting your stamp of approval on their behavior unless you are changing your behavior, unless you are setting the boundaries, you are removing yourself from the circumstance. And I aim for forgiveness. If I think about my breakup, I have not gotten there with my ex. I have done a lot of forgiveness practices. I am in zero contact. I will probably remain in zero contact for the rest of my life because my boundaries are really firm on what accountability looks like. And that guts me because I would like apology. I would like not reconciliation, but like repair. But I can't accept something that continues to harm me, that perpetuates the cycle of harm.
Right.
And that would just overstamp his thing. But I would like to get myself to forgiveness, but I haven't finished validating my anger. Mm. And if I pretend that's untrue, then I'm just invalidating myself or gaslighting myself. That's what I mean. I think forgiveness eventually is a very healing practice. I think it's a virtue. But I think if you pretend you forgive before you actually learned and processed, it's just a way of gaslighting yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree to a certain extent. I mean, for me, it's, there is certain stages where you can go through that animosity phase and that, fuck you phase and all that sorts of stuff. But then I sit down and I think, I'm like, what positive aspects is this doing for me by hanging on to that? So what I realized actually in writing the book about my life, my mother was physically abusive. She was very selfish. She was very narcissistic. She was mentally abusive, told me I was a piece of shit, told me I was stupid, told me I'd never, all these fucked up things. And I'm writing the book and I'm having to relive all these stories and I'm having to go, why did I put up with that? I mean, this continued in my adulthood. After I got out of being homeless, she was still homeless. I had to sit there and make the hardest decision of my life. And I had to sit there and say, you know what, if I don't get the fuck out of this motel where there was drugs and prostitution and cops, she was being an informant to the cop while being a personal assistant to a drug dealer. And she was telling me how to fucking live my life. And at 17 years old, after I had a gun put to my head by a black guy who thought I was racist, I'm like, dude, I grew up in Inglewood. I was the only white kid in the whole fucking neighborhood. I could care less what your color of your skin is. I care what the color of the stolen cigarettes you're trying to sell me that I don't smoke are. I said, so if you're going to pull the fucking trigger, pull it. And I fully expected to hear it click and, oh, this is what it's like to be dead. Unfortunately, somebody came running out of one of the motel rooms. It was like, no, him and his mom are cool. Him and his mom are cool. And it was after that, Devin, I had to sit there and go, you know what? I got to really make a tough decision. If I stay here and allow this abuse to continue, then I deserve it. But if I sit there and I make the determination, something happened a few weeks after that, where I had an opportunity to go live in an apartment with a couple of buddies. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. I can't leave my mom in this place. I'm the only one making money working at Carl's Jr. and working a telemarketing job. I can't. And I thought, if I don't get out of here, I am going to wind up exactly like, no offense to those people, but I did not want that life. And so I made that toughest decision to leave her in that motel and leave her in that dangerous situation. And I still provided money for her, but she had 18 cats in a 10 by 10 motel room. And I made the toughest decision. And because I made that decision, I was able to change my life, but that never changed. I mean, after that, I had to still help her and still help her and still help her. And there was all these things that she fucked me over on and all sorts of stuff. But when I was writing the book, I thought to myself, how can I let go of this anger? How can I let go of the fact that I'm never going to get the apology? And it wasn't until 2 weeks before her death that she actually sort of acknowledged the fact that she had fucked up and that I really had done a lot for her. So I did get somewhat of a closing, but in that book, I remember her always saying, I'm 4 years old. She would say, I'm 4 years old. And I'm like, the fuck you are? You're a grown ass woman. Like, act like it. You're fucking book smart. You can act like a doctor. She literally could talk to doctors and they would ask her where she practiced medicine. That's how smart she was. But people smart, she was stupid as the fucking day is long. And I sat there and I'm like, why did she keep saying 4 years old? I'm like, what happened to her at 4 years old? Oh, her parents got divorced. Her parents were in their early 20s. She was born in 1942. So I'm like, okay, so it was 1946. What was going on politically? What was going on in the world? What was going on economically? How were women treated? How was the male masculinity? What events occurred in her life for her to become the person that she did? And as I started piecing it together, I'm like, her parents split up. She had to go live with her mother, who had 6 verifiable psychiatric disorders, including schizophrenia, including bipolar disorder, including multiple personality disorder. And I'm like, and I always said, yeah, I don't know how you fucking live with grandma. I don't know how you do it. Cause she was like, I'm trying to do better than grandma. And I'm like, you could do a lot fucking better than that. But I realized that I wanted her to be like Mrs. Brady back at the day, that's how old I am. Mrs. Brady, Mrs. Cunningham. I wanted her to be like the mom down the street who made lunches and all that stuff. And I'm like, that was unrealistic of me to have that expectation of her. So I developed this opportunity to sit there and say, if I walked in her shoes, and this has helped a lot of people and it may help you. If I walked in her shoes and had her experiences, might I have been like her? And my initial gut reaction was, fuck no, you're an adult, you're a parent, you don't do those things, you're smarter than that. But I just realized she was a victim of her own negative self-talk. She was a victim of her own narcissistic ways because she had to build herself up so much because her self-confidence, her sense of identity was so destroyed by her parents. She didn't know who she was. And admittedly, she told me, she goes, I never should have been a parent. And then later in life, she told me, she goes, I was going to place you for adoption, but I didn't. And she had miscarriages and abortions and all sorts of stuff. And I said, why didn't you? And she goes, I gave birth to you, and the nurse said, do you want to see him? And she said, originally she said no, because she was going to place me for adoption. This was 1969. And instead she changed her mind and she said, yeah, let me see him. And so they laid me on her chest, and my mother already had my sister from a different father, of course. And that's when she said, it's just you and me, kid. And that's the name of the book. It's just you and me, kid. And throughout my life, I thought, people said, don't you wish you had had a normal childhood and you weren't homeless and you didn't go through all those experiences? And again, I had to go find gratitude for everything happens for a reason. And what doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger. Because of all those experiences, I was able to develop that fortitude. I was able to develop that confidence. I was able to develop the healing ways, no matter how I did it, through therapy, through medication, through drugs, through all sorts of different things, through positive self-improvement, which I've been addicted to my entire life. Those opportunities allowed me to become the person that I am. And so when I had that empathy for her, and I was able to say, you know what, I had unrealistic expectations for you. And, you know, given everything that we experienced, I felt like it turned out pretty good. And not that I'm perfect, and not that things don't still happen, but I have that sense of curiosity and that sense of adventure, because I go back to that childlike state and think, all right, what's next? I've accomplished and conquered so much, but now I'm 57 years old. I have a 9-year-old son. What's going on with AI? What's going on with the political landscape? I don't watch the news or follow politics, but I'm a very empathic person and I feel what's going on in the world. But it's allowed me that strength to believe that, you know, no matter what happens, I'm going to figure it the fuck out. And I'll tell you this last thing before we kind of wrap things up. One of my, you said, don't give a fuck or something like that. It's funny because I tell people DGF, don't give a fuck. Like, easier said than done sometimes, but once you realize that I'm out of fucks to give, like you make it rain, like at a strip club, whatever. And my coaching client was down in Mexico. She got DGF. I said, I want to get moments on the inside of my wrist so that when I'm doing something, I can just look down and go, are you being present? Or are you being in your brain, your monkey brain? She got DGF tattooed on her wrist. She was down in Mexico. She goes, I love it so much. And I was like, that's the way. Because you said that word before. We make that commitment to ourselves. We hold ourselves accountable. So my last question for you, because we've already been going for 57 minutes and I try to keep these to an hour. What are some of your favorite questions, either to ask yourself or to ask your clients? As you can tell, I'm a question asker. I have a whole list of questions I ask myself, and that I go down rabbit holes. I ask myself in the moment, just to give you an example, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Which changes my direction from being a victim or being pissy to be there. Okay, what am I supposed to be learning from this? It shifts my direction to empowerment, to results, to confidence, to okay, how can I be more resourceful? How can I see this in a different way? What are some of your questions that you like to pose to yourself or pose to your clients that really gain the maximum opportunity for shifts?
Big fan of dual consciousness. So one thing I ask a lot is, if the version of you who existed 10 years ago, 10 years in the future, came in and answered this question, what would they say the value of this period of your life was?
Say that a little slower.
If
what was the
version of you 10 years older, 10 years in the future, if I asked them what was the value of this period of your life, how would future you answer?
Oh, I love that.
And there is some research on like writing notes to yourself from future perspectives. And there's some metaphysical thoughts around this too, but
yep.
I like the time arc. I get a lot of creatives as clients. So I'll ask, like, if this is chapter 17 in your book, when you get to chapter 35, how is it referenced? And I think any question like that helps bring in the larger arc. But if I'm in the small arc in this moment, quite often the questions are, what is your body telling you needs to be left behind? And what is it inviting in?
Love that.
I'll go with those.
Okay. No, I love that. I actually have my coaching clients do that. I have them either write letters to their 9-year-old selves, or future letters from themselves, or letters to their future selves. And through that process, again, it's that shift. It's that shift of, oh, I would probably either look at this time right now with gratitude, because the times in my life, like I said before, are usually the times that we grow the most, when we've hit rock bottom, or we've had a setback, or we've been, any number of things, which I've experienced and you've experienced a whole shitload. that's the thing that I want the audience to walk away from this conversation, is that empowerment, that belief, that trust in realizing that this gift of life is an amazing journey of peaks and valleys. And so oftentimes we sit there and so many people will say, oh, you got to see this view. You got to see this view. What does it take to get to the view? You have to climb. Whether it's you got to drive up a hill, you got to, I remember I was in Canada and somebody said, oh, you got to go see the top of, I can't remember the fucking name of it right now. I want to say Rainier, but it's not Rainier. It's a ski place out there. But what does it take to get there? It takes struggle. But once you get up there and you're able to see the view, you're like, holy shit, it was so worth it. And that's what I want people to do, is get to the end. We're all going to get to the end of our life, whether it's 6 hours from now, 6 years from now, whatever it's going to be. We're going to get to the end of our life and we're going to be thinking, holy shit, man, I fucking did it. I was in integrity with myself. I valued myself. I trusted people. I loved people. I let people love me. I took chances. I lived my life versus existing in it. And so many people are hoping, wishing, and praying that someday they'll be happy. Oh, I'll be happy when I have the relationship, all these different things. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't necessarily happen until you do, and you have conversations like this and you get real and you get raw with yourself. And that's what I encourage everybody to do that are listening tonight. Devin, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you so much for your vulnerability, for your honesty, because that's what I look for in this show. That's what I look for people to share and to have that. I want to have that experience for my guest. I didn't tell you this originally, but I always want my guests to walk away feeling a little bit more empowered, feeling a little bit more whatever it is that they might need in those moments. And sometimes people don't think they need anything. And then they get to the end of the conversation. They're like, holy shit, Chris, when you said that, that really threw me off. And that made me think, okay, have I been doing that? So I hope that's been the experience for you. Where could people learn more about Devin and be able to partake in your coaching services and the things you do offer?
Well, my website just went up. It's findyourmeaning.coach. Find Your Meaning is my business name. You're welcome to book with me there. If you're in New York, it can be touch-based. So psychological body work is what I call it. It's a form of osteopathic massage with talk. If you scroll down the website, I have a newsletter. You can sign up. And I'm learning how to use social media this year. It is a goal of 2026. So it's devinscott.nyc on Instagram. So you can follow me there and I will figure it out this year. And I really enjoyed it. And I appreciate your willingness to let me share. And I did. I have my own fair share of takeaways and I'm leaving feeling like a bit more empowered. I feel like I've been in a bit of a rock bottom of sensing powerlessness, and I'm like leaving the conversation of like, fuck yeah, get your power back. Not everything's in your control, but remember what is.
It is. It is. I'm going to place you backstage, Devin. Everybody, again, it's findyourmeaning.coach. For those of you guys listening on the podcast, findyourmeaning.coach. If you guys are listening to the podcast, we'll make sure that that's in the show notes. Devin, I want to place you backstage. Don't go anywhere so I can still have a conversation with you, but I'm just going to end out the show just for a few minutes. There you have it, boys and girls. Holy shit. What an incredible conversation. It's been a while since we've had guests on here, aside from our previous guest that we just had a couple of weeks ago, but thank you guys for sticking with us through those technical things. I don't hear the wind anymore, which is crazy. So I haven't seen any problems on my end. So might be the wind. It might be just the electrical energy of the conversation tonight. Sometimes that does happen. If you were to talk to me 5-10 years ago, I'd be like, energy, frequency, breath. What the fuck is that? That's stupid. But again, what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about growth. We're talking about awareness. We're talking about receptivity to what can be, not what is. Because if we have our blinders on, guess what? This is all we're going to see. This is all we're going to see. And if we talk about the fact that where focus goes, energy flows. Where focus goes, energy flows. Jacqueline on the video cast says, Christopher, your mother had mental problems she couldn't help. If only when she was a kid, they got her help. She needed things might have been different. Yeah. And to that point, Jacqueline, again, I'm at my life where I wouldn't want them any different. Like I know some of my friends out there who had awesome parents, who had the perfect experience, who got to go to college, who got to have the dorm experience, who got to, do all those things. And they're still in their place. I won't put a label on it, but they're still in their place. And the thing we kind of talked about for a second tonight, but it's so important for me to reiterate, again, the people you associate, the people you keep in your world. We could talk about the team. You got to have the team, somebody you trust, somebody who empowers you, somebody who holds you accountable, and somebody who mentors you, and they can't be the same person. And so oftentimes we all have one person. Like, who's your team? Oh, I have Sally. Okay. Who else do you have? I don't have anybody else. Okay. What would it be like if you had a team of people? I used to call it a board of directors. Like, who's your board of directors? Like, I have Jock, I have Scott, I have Lee, I have Walt, I have Sally, like, and so many other people. I have Mary. I have so many people in my life that, depending on the situation I'm going through, I can sit there and say, hey, you got time to talk? And they do the same thing. Lee will chat. Hey, you got time to? Hell, fuck yeah. We'll say, hey, can we talk tomorrow? Hell yeah. I'll talk to Jock. Hey man, I'm having a moment. And Jock is my Scottish buddy. He comes on with a Scottish accent, and he'll be like, oh, Chris, have you thought about this? Like, I don't know if I don't do accents very well. I used to, but now I fucking get them all mixed up. I can go from Scottish to British to Australian to Hispanic in fucking 4 sentences. But the importance of the people that you allow in your life, there have been a lot of people in my life that I've had to forgive. And I know there's people in life that probably need to forgive me or should forgive me, because I haven't always been the best. I reached out to 3 older close friends over the last, I don't know, maybe month. And because I tend to be more isolated, I tend to be more of a lone wolf. I've got so many people all over the world that I can connect with, but people in person, I do a pretty horrible job of that. I'm pretty dedicated to being a dad and being a husband, and doing my stuff, that I have not made a great effort to be in person with people. And I thought, I'm going to reach out to some of the people I used to hang out with that I either did music with or cars and stuff like that. And we're just different. And I was like sad because I thought it was them. And I thought, what, maybe it was me, because there has been people in my life that have said, Chris, you're too positive. And literally my friends had an intervention with me because I was so positive that they said they couldn't have a bad day. And my friend, 2 different interventions, kind of, not like a fucking intervention, but came to me and said, hey, Chris, we want rock and roll Chris back. We want practical joker Chris back. We don't need you to always tell us how we can make our lives better. But I was so passionate, and I know that I alienated people, that I know that I made people uncomfortable, and I still do. Because I asked my wife the other day, we have, friends of our sons that we hang out with every once in a while. And I said, I can't seem to develop a connection with those guys, the husbands, the dads. And they're like, they feel intimidated by you. I'm like, what? Me? Well, I'm fucking just me. Like, no, you're so comfortable in talking about your feelings and being vulnerable and talking about life and going deep. Those guys don't do that. They never talk about their feelings. They never talk about stuff like that. They talk about sports and da-da-da-da. And so the last time we were all together, I just made it a point to kind of shut up and listen. And she goes, I noticed you were quiet. And I said, yeah, I was just listening. I was trying to bond. I have a 69 Charge and I was trying to do stuff like that. I don't know if maybe they're just now uncomfortable around me that they don't want to say anything. So I have to accept responsibility for that. But also at the same time, there have been those people where I've just had to say, you know what, that was then, this is now. And that's okay, because that's a chapter in our life. Devin was talking about, you're writing chapter 17, and what would it look like at chapter 35? You're in this chapter right now. And hopefully when you get to the next couple of chapters, you're going to look back on this chapter and go, fuck yeah. You know what? That was some tough stuff, but because I got to experience that, I don't have to, I get to experience these things. I get to grow. I get to choose tonight to go to sleep. When I go to bed every night, I sit there and I look back, what am I most proud of today? Again, where your focus goes, energy flows. And I will give you an example. It's called the reticular activation system. You can look it up. It's RAS. So if I tell you right now, actually just do it. Just look around your room, wherever you guys are at. Look around and tell me everything is blue. That's blue. That's blue. That's blue. That's blue. Sorry, my in-ears are, that's blue. That's blue. That's blue. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You sure you got everything that's blue? Yeah, I got everything that's blue. The guitar's blue. Yeah. The light's blue. I got the one behind me. Yeah. Okay. So tell me what everything was yellow. Chris, you were telling me to look for what's blue. I didn't see yellow. I saw blue. Same thing in your life. If you're looking for everything that's pissing you off and fucking you over and all these different things that's not happening, you're going to find it. You're going to find it. If you wake up in the morning and go, oh shit, you look at your phone and like, oh fuck, this news is terrible. And oh God, today's going to suck. And my boss is going to be a dick. And man, traffic's going to suck. guess what? You're going to find all sorts of reasons at the end of the day to come home and go, yep. But guess what? If you wake up and you say, you know what am I grateful for right now? I'm grateful for the fact I have an amazing bed. I'm grateful for my son sleeping in the room next to me. I'm grateful for my ceiling fan. I'm grateful for my bamboo sheets. I'm grateful for, I have a television in my room. I don't know, whatever it might be. You wake up and you find gratitude, and then you set the intention. You set the intention. My intention today is to be present and playful with my son. My intention today is to say and do things that are going to make the world a better place. My intention is to treat myself better. My intention, I say these things. My intention is to have fun today. And that has been a process of being able to relax. And now I play video games and racing. I have my little racing wheel and I have a fucking blast doing that. And I used to feel guilty and used to feel shame if I didn't do stuff to earn it. And now I'm just like, you know what? Relax. Don't do it when you want, whatever. See, I got songs busting in my head. So again, going back to the conversation before, have a playlist. Listen to songs in the morning. Sing those songs out loud. Bop, did bop, dancing queen, dancing. Fuck yeah. You're like, oh yeah, let's do this. Am I going to show up as a rock star today? Or am I going to show up as somebody who's all sad and mad and pissed off and blah, 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 blah. Nah. And then you're like, why are people avoiding me? Because I'm in a pissy mood. Right? You get to have your pity party for one day, but then you're going to like, you know what? I'm a rock star. That's what I teach you guys how to do. And again, if you want to join my group coaching program, you can. If you want to coach with me, you can. Does it cost money? Is it an investment? Yes. But what would life be like if you didn't have your excuses? What would life be like if you kept your promises to yourself? What would it be like if you didn't have that victim mentality? What would it be like if you just got to spend an hour with me every single week for the next 6 months? And wow. Yeah. There's so much in this episode that I want you to unpack. If you came into it halfway through, go back and listen to it again. I highly encourage you to take notes. Like I said before, take notes, come back to the show next week. Go back and listen to the show last week on emotional regulation. If you want, I'll give you those 5 book titles. There's tons of things you could do. You got a fucking computer in your hand. You get ChatGPT. I pay for ChatGPT. I use it. Like, help me with this. Help me with that. How do I process this? Like, you learn and you grow and you make that 1% improvement every single day. And guess what? It ain't perfect, but fucking hell, man. I was thinking about my life the other day and thinking about my legacy, and I'm proud. I know tons and tons of people would show up from all over the world, whether it was socially or in person, and say, that motherfucker changed the way I think about myself. So is my job done? Sure, in some respects, but it's continuing and it's ongoing and it's every single day. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is not going to be additional times in my life where I won't be challenged to my wit's end. And guess what? Bring it. Not right now, but bring it, because I can handle it and I'll figure it the fuck out. All right, guys, we went way over our time. I apologize. No, I don't, because you guys got a lot of value out of this. Jacqueline says here, being positive is a choice we make every day to make the most of life we have been given. And I'm in contact with Jacqueline all throughout the week. We have great conversations and we support one another. We get to pick our friends' nose, but we don't get, no, she says, we get to pick our friends, not our parents. Yeah. Actually, they say, if you look at the soul experience, we do pick our parents. We pick all the players in our life. So think about it that way. You may have picked your parents and picked this experience. And so it's your choice. It's your choice. It's your life. No excuses. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, every single Tuesday. Go check out the podcast. All of them are up there, 594 of them. I love you guys. Raw Unscripted out.